This is problem number 13 on the sample test problems for test number 2. The depth of water at a dock fluctuates according to the formula D equals 7 sine of pi over 6t plus 32, where D is measured in feet and T is measured in hours since midnight. Find the first 3 times after midnight when the depth of the water will be 29 feet. Certainly the easiest thing to do here would be just graph this equation on the calculator and then use the intersect command. We're going to try to do this without the graphing capabilities of the calculator. We'll do it algebraically first, and then we'll go ahead and use the calculator to check our answer. But essentially, we kind of need a picture of this function in order to figure out what to do. So I'm going to, we're going to do some algebra first, and then we're going to draw a picture when we get to a place where we don't exactly know what to do next. So we want the depth of the water to be 29 feet, so we're just going to replace the D with 29. So the goal here is to solve for t, so we're going to move some things around. First, the 32 needs to move over to the other side. And then the 7 needs to move. And then we need to take the inverse sine of both sides. And then finally, you need to solve for t, so either divide by pi over 6 or multiply by 6 over pi. Okay, so we're going to type that whole thing into the calculator. Now, I said we were going to avoid using the graphing capability of the calculator, but we need to use the calculator to type this thing in. So 6 over pi, inverse sine, and the moment I hit that button, I need to go into the mode and make sure I'm in the right mode. In this case, we need to be in radian mode. You can see there's pi's in the problem. The default is going to be radian for almost all word problems. So make sure we're in radian mode, which we are. And then -3/7 goes here. So whatever I get is supposed to be 1 time when the depth of the water is 29 feet. Okay, time in this case was measured in hours. So yeah, hours since midnight. So -0.84 hours since midnight is a time when the depth of the water is 29 feet. All right, what does that really mean? Let's see. So it's negative, so that must be before midnight. So about 0.8 of an hour before midnight, the depth of the water was 29 feet. That number is not so nice as hours, so let's convert to minutes. So it looks like about 51 minutes before midnight is when the depth of the water was 29 feet. So let's write that here. 0.84, so we'll say it's about -0.85. And that was hours. And really that means about 51 minutes, -51 minutes. So that makes it around 11:09 p.m. It was before midnight. Okay, so that is an answer. Remember the question said find the first 3 times after midnight, so this isn't even one of the 3 times, but at least it's a time, and it's the only time the calculator is going to give you. I mean, the calculator is making a choice when you ask for the inverse sine of something, and it's making the only choice it's programmed to make. So our job now is to take that 11:09 and see if we can find some other times where the height of the water was 29 feet. Okay. So what I think I want to do now is think about graphing this function, but again, I'm going to try to do this without the calculator. All we need is a real rough sketch for the graph of this function. So let's try that down here. So D equals 7 sine pi over 6t plus 32. Okay, so we'll do this real quick. I do this a little bit slower in some of the other videos, so check those out if you need. The midline of this thing is 32. The amplitude is 7, which means we go up 7 and down 7. So we reach a top up here at 39, and then the bottom is 7 below, so that's a bottom of 25. And this is a sine function. So sine functions just start in the middle, and they are on their way up. So it goes up and down and up, etc. It also means it must have gone down this way. And what we're interested in here is places where the height is exactly 29 feet. So that's somewhere down below. So we'll just put 29 somewhere in here. And you can see that there are quite a few times when the depth of the water is 29. And if this thing right here was midnight, then I think the answer the calculator gave us, this 11:09 p.m. was that answer right there. The one a little bit before midnight. So what we'd like to do is maybe think about using the symmetry here. I mean, if you know the one answer is 11:09, we should be able to find the other answers. What we need to know first is what the period of this function is. So remember the period is 2 pi over what we're calling b. B is the number touching the t, which is pi over 6. This thing right here is your b. And just be careful here, the pi's cancel and the 6 comes up and we get 12. So the period of this function is 12 hours, which means that from start to finish we get one complete cycle in 12 hours. So that makes this point right here, so this is my start, and then we're back one complete cycle later right there at 12 hours. Okay, now I think we can finally start to use some of the symmetry. If the period is 12, then I can find this halfway point. That one right there must be 6, and then we'll go another halfway just for kicks. That's a 3, and then this other halfway, it must be a 9. All right, so thinking about symmetry, this point right here was 51 minutes before midnight. So it feels like this point right over here must be 51 minutes before noon, 12 hours later. So just by thinking about symmetry, I think we've got 51 minutes before noon, which is the same 11:09, but now it's 11:09 a.m. That's that point. And then we've got another point, go back to green. So we're focusing now on this one right here. So if it feels like, let's see, so it feels like this distance in here, it's a little tiny distance, that's the 51 minutes that we've been finding. By the symmetry, it sure feels like that's going to be 51 as well. So if we're going 51 minutes and we're going 51 minutes after 6, then this point right here must be 6:51 in the AM. And so those are the first 2 times after midnight. So I guess we need to draw our curve a little bit further. And we find a 3rd time out here. And which point does that correspond to? Let's see. So it's hitting 29, but it's on its way down. So it must be like this point over here where it was on its way down. So it must be like the 6:51, but 1 period later, 12 hours later. So then my last answer, which is this guy right here, must be 6:51 p.m. So we did all of that using algebra, using an inverse trig, the inverse sign on the calculator, and then using the symmetry. We had to think about the graph here. Okay, so let's just check our answer on the calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and graph the original equation, the 7 sine of pi over 6. And I'll think about my window. So I'm going to go ahead and make my window. Let's see. So we know our answer, our last answer is right there after 6, but think of this more as military times. That's like 1800. So maybe we'll go out to 1900 and we'll get our last answer just barely. And then we can start at 0, but maybe we'll start just a little bit earlier. Maybe we'll start at -1. So we'll go from -1 up to 19 hours. And then, you know what, let's go to 24 hours just so we see 2 nice cycles there. And the y's, well, we said the y's were trapped between 25 and 39. So let's do that, 25 and 39. And so if we're doing this right, we should see 2 complete cycles plus a little bit to the left, because I didn't start at 0, and should hit exactly the tops and bottoms of the window. And again, make sure you're in the right mode before you hit graph. So that looks pretty good. Hits the top, hits the bottom. We see a little bit to the left here, and basically 2 complete cycles in there. And we're interested in finding where this thing is at 29. So we'll graph the horizontal line at 29. You can see we've got the 1 point that the calculator found was here, and we needed to find these 3 points. And we actually got a 4th point because we drew a little bit further than on the paper. So we'll do second calc and then intersect. And let's go ahead and try to find this point first. So maybe it's not exactly clear what that number is, but we know that we get 1 complete cycle after 12. So I figure this one must be, somewhere like over on this side. Maybe I'll guess 3 or something. First curve, enter. Second curve, enter. Just guess some number that's less than this, which certainly 3 is less than that. And we get 6.84. If you convert that from 0.84 hours into minutes, you'll get 51 minutes. And we can do the same thing to get this number. So we'll go second calc and then intersect. First curve, enter. Second curve, enter. I don't know what the answer is, but I know it's definitely more than 6. Maybe we'll guess around 12. And 11.15. Again, convert that 0.15 hours into minutes, and we should get the 0.09 minutes. And then the last answer, if we did it one more time, we'd get this number, which would be 6:51, but it would be in the PM, so it would be 18 and then about half an hour. Not half an hour, but 18 and 51 minutes, so about 18.8 something.